Order for Jennifer C.
Is this my double shot, double cream, double froth, double pump, double whip, double sleeve?
Yeah. Can you handle that much caffeine?
Did you know Discover automatically doubles all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year?
Oh, really? That's great.
Seriously, did you know Discover automatically doubles all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year?
Yeah, you just said that.
Did you say I just said that?
Yeah, I'm cutting you off.
I can't have any more? Why not?
You earn, we match. Discover Cashback Match. See terms at discover.com/creditcard.
Miami, July 5th and July 31st. Ice Cube's Big 3 is back at the Amerant Bank Arena, featuring big stars like Dwight Howard, Joe Johnson, Lance Stevenson, and more. And featuring your home team, the Miami 305, led by Michael Beasley. Grab your tickets now at big3.com/tickets or Ticketmaster. Presented by iHeart.
You're locked on to Scotty G and the coach, Tim LaCombe. Presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Scott Gerard alongside the coach, Tim LaCombe. I knew I'd get you on that one.
Yeah, Brian Adams.
Everywhere I go, kids want to rock. Joining us now from the Oregonian, I would say, I was just saying, Bill, if Tom Dundon doesn't seem like a guy that's going to spend a lot of money on Christmas cards, but if he were, I don't know if you'd be getting one right now. How are you, my friend?
Oh, I just don't know if that's true. I think Tom and I have a good relationship at this point. But I understand why you would say that. I'm good, Scotty. How are you guys?
Man, it's so good to chat with you. How are things up there?
Never boring, I would say, right now, at least as it pertains to the Trailblazers. You know, the thing that is just wacky and is that there's like a massive political issue going on with the arena. And there is no guarantee that they're going to get an arena deal done on the stated necessary timeline to renovate Moda Center. The league is expecting a deal done. The league has said that the arena needs to get renovated, basically for the Blazers to stay. The team leaving Portland after 50 plus years, is such a real threat. And I don't think I don't know how many people fully understand that yet. And yet Tom Dundon can't help make headlines on even crazier stuff than that when you deal with the coaching search, the process of the coaching search, letting Tiago Splitter go, hiring a great coach in Mike Inori, or at least what seems to be a really good hire in Mike Inori, but on a mind-boggling contract, and now the John Morant trade, which I'm not a fan of. It's a really, really crazy moment up here in Portland.
Obviously, the big news outside of that was in the last 24 hours is John Morant making his way to Portland. We were just joking that, decades ago they were known as the Jailblazers. And, while Ja's been on his best behavior the last couple of years, there's a penchant for that. Your thoughts on that move, and what does that do with Drew Holiday and Scoot Henderson?
Yeah, I mean, you would assume that there would be more moves involving either Drew or Scoot. Shaden Sharp also, he's more of a 2, but like you can make it work with extra guards. I mean, I think the Blazers like the idea of Dame playing off ball a little bit more than he has in his career. So having some ball handlers isn't the worst thing. But then what does that do to Shaden Sharp, who seemed to kind of be the odd man out anyway in their guard rotation in the postseason? So I think you can anticipate more moves before the season in the backcourt. The jaw thing, the Jailblazer thing is so interesting and it's so loaded. What you said is basically what I wrote in my column yesterday, that this feels like kind of a throwback to that era, which is a really dark period in Portland for Portland fans. And, the term Jailblazers is loaded because there's a simple fact that nobody ever served a jail sentence. But beyond that, a lot of the things that happened, that get lumped into the Jailblazers era, it's Rasheed Wallace's, on-court behavior. It was smoking marijuana, which, we look at differently in 2026 than we did in 2000, and a lot of minor stuff. It was also Quintel Woods, dogfighting. It was Zach Randolph having, some issues with firearms. It was Sebastian Telfair trying to sneak a handgun onto the team plane in a pillowcase. And that's all stuff that kind of in a 6-year period really created a divide between the city and the franchise. And this is a team, as you guys very well know, is deeply in love with its basketball team. And, throughout most of the history has been regarded as one of the greatest fan bases in the NBA. You go back to like 2005, there was a lot of contempt between the city of Portland and the basketball franchise. And the Ja Morant trade for me feels like I've had a lot of people disagree and I've had a lot of people agree. To me, I think it's an insult to fans who lived through that period, because Ja does not help your basketball team, in my opinion. I don't see the additive appeal in the rotation, in the guard rotation, in the backcourt. Um, you've got good guards, even though Drew's old and maybe he's the guy who's on his way out. Um, he has not played in the last 3 years. He's missed, I think, 167 games in 3 seasons. He hasn't been available. Some of that was suspension. Most of it was injury and surgery. He hasn't been available. He hasn't been the player that he was early in his career. And it doesn't really seem like he's learned, even, the stuff with, the guns on Instagram live videos, those were back in 2023. But, there was the incident, even something as simple as the league said, stop using finger guns to celebrate, on the court. And he couldn't do that. And he kept doing it and he got fined $75,000. So you're bringing in that guy into what has felt like a really promising and emerging culture. I don't see the appeal of it. I don't see the upside of it. I don't see the logic of it. And I think that all you need to know about Ja Morant is that the franchise that drafted him, that he became an all NBA player with, where he's, as popular as he was going to be anywhere, just traded him for what is generally considered the worst contract in the NBA, Jerami Grant. No draft picks attached. They just to get rid of him. So for them, it's addition by subtraction. And ipso facto for Portland, it should be seen as subtraction by addition.
So when you I want to circle back a little bit on the ownership. When Dundon buys the team, there was a little bit of a reputation based on what happened in Carolina, but Carolina wins, so he gets a little bit of a pass. Did people in that organization anticipate things would get as drastic as quickly as they did with him?
I think that there was a pretty healthy awareness that it was going to be pretty ugly. Whether it was going to be layoffs of the magnitude that there were, more than 70 people ended up getting laid off, which was just a big number, but also generally understood that the Trailblazers were a heavily staffed organization relative to a lot of other teams in the league. So that wasn't so much a surprise. I think just sort of the severity of it caught people off guard. That's not something that had happened here in a very long time. But it's everything else. It's the tenor of ownership. It's the lack of I don't want to say humanity. That feels too strong, but just the very like decisive business like nature that everything is being done. Um, the Blazers for 30 years were owned by Paul Allen and later his estate, and there was a blank checkbook really for things that obviously on the court. I mean, you saw Paul Allen really invest in the roster when they had a chance to go for it in the early 2000s, but around the organization they were like well staffed. They've invested in a lot of other areas outside of the roster. Money got spent, and that is going to be very different now. And there was sort of I think that you could almost look at it as a passivity within the organization from ownership. I mean, just almost like a lack of urgency because there was so much money there. But now that is not the case, and it's I think it's culture shock. It's just total culture shock. And I would also say, Dundon comes in and he's this brash Texan billionaire who made his money in some subprime loans, is unapologetic about being thrifty, and he comes in with like kind of a conservative ideology and a DGAF, I will say, attitude that really is not a good cultural fit for the city of Portland. And I think that as you look at kind of the way he's handling the politics of this arena deal, I've spoken with Tom several times. I kind of like Tom, I think more than people think I do, but I think that you probably would be hard pressed to have found a worse cultural fit for the city of Portland to lead essentially a public trust like the Trailblazers than Tom Dundon. This is not like somebody who has any natural sort of kinship with the city of Portland. It's the exact opposite.
Miami, July 5th and July 31st. Ice Cube's Big 3 is back at the Amerant Bank Arena, featuring big stars like Dwight Howard, Joe Johnson, Lance Stevenson, and more. And featuring your home team, the Miami 305, led by Michael Beasley. Grab your tickets now at big3.com/tickets or Ticketmaster. Presented by iHeart.
You mentioned the coaching search, which landed Mike and Nori. your thoughts on the search and him as the selection.
I like Micah a lot, and if you'd told me, at the end of the playoffs that Micah Nori was going to be that guy they get, I would have said that was a success. He is somebody who is well liked by players. He's obviously a very good basketball mind. He's been part of some great organizations. The huge part of what the Timberwolves did, going to the Western Conference Finals twice in 3 years. He is a well-regarded assistant coach who deserved a chance to be a head coach in the NBA. And the search, the process, I guess the question is, does the result justify the process? Because they gave him a 1-year contract, which I've never heard of in the NBA. Maybe you can go back into like the 60s or something, and there's some, a team didn't know if it was going to be around the next year, so the guy was on a 1-year contract. But this is not how it's done in professional sports. And I think there is something, it tells you so much more about Tom Dundon and the way he does business and the way he views things than almost anything else could. He wants to see you prove it. He wants to see you put some trust into him, and then he'll put trust into you. And I think that the example here is what he did with the Carolina Hurricanes, who just won the Stanley Cup, obviously. Rod Brindamore was hired on a league low salary as the coach back in 2018. And Tom essentially asked Rod to take that leap of faith with him, and they made the playoffs every year. Rod has consistently gotten new contracts and raises. I don't know where his
Looks like we may have lost Bill there for a moment. We'll try to get him back on. But if there's one thing that Tom Dundon really has going for him, is that he's got that Carolina model. And he came in and said, all right, we're going to cut costs. We're going to do this. And ultimately, you got a Carolina team that's now won a Stanley Cup. And so, that he's like, hey, look, it may not be popular. It may not be the most empathetic way of running an organization, but it's working in the NHL. Why can't I take that model of the NBA?
I mean, it's obviously his right as the owner. I think the bigger issue is the stadium or the arena issue, and how easy it would be with no ties there to just yank the team and take them somewhere else.
And Bill Oram's back with us from the Oregonian right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Bill, so the Moda Center obviously is a huge issue, and so clarify some things. Dundon has said essentially, I'm not chipping in on any of this. Is that accurate? And if you want us to essentially stay, you got to find a way to make this work without money from me?
Yeah, so he hasn't said in such explicit terms that he won't chip in, but he's not going to chip in. There's, the city, the state, and the county came together over the last year and sort of hammered out the broad framework of a deal that all sides could be comfortable with 3 public entities putting into a $600 million project. The Blazers, view this as, generating an economic driver for the city of Portland, for a city that doesn't have a lot of economic drivers right now. The city has been backsliding since 2020. Businesses are leaving. The Blazers ranked last in sponsorship dollars. And so the cold reality here is that from a business standpoint, Tom Dundon could make more money or drive more revenue in a lot of other cities other than Portland. And so I think the view from the franchise is, yeah, Portland's kind of going to need us, pay us to stay here. But the result is you get a 20-year lease, and we're going to continue to invest in the market. And that is, again, very different from the way, anything is operated over the first 56 years of this franchise. But, call it, a hostage situation or whatever. The ownership has the leverage here because the lease is expiring. The building is 30 years old and hasn't undergone a major renovation. And there are other cities that would be interested, absolutely, in bringing an NBA franchise in, regardless of what happens with expansion.
So with the move by the Blazers with Ja, because they were rumored for Jaylen Brown, there was obviously talks. Jalen's name's been thrown around, but does that effectively end that conversation, or is there still a possibility that could happen?
What's interesting is that in a vacuum, I think the Jaw trade makes a trade like the Jalen Brown one more likely because they have additional pieces now. It would be easier to trade Scoot. It would be easier to trade Drew Holiday. But I just don't get the sense that the Blazers are all that interested in gutting their resources for Jalen Brown specifically. He is a great scorer in the league. He's a 6'8", 6'9" wing, but I don't know that they're a very analytically run organization. And, there's been a lot of talk over the last week about the analytics on Jalen. I think that the Blazers' interest in Jalen Brown is actually maybe cooler than has been widely sort of assumed.
All right. I can't bring you on here in Salt Lake City without asking you what's the situation there on ownership, potential ownership, site, and everything else that goes on along with their move to try to bring a Major League Baseball team there.
Let's try to keep the team we have first, Scotty. But I think that the Portland Diamond Project is watching this closely. I think they realize it would be probably pretty tone deaf to be, trying to move forward with baseball when the Blazers situation is currently up in the air. So I don't expect to hear anything more on that until the arena situation here is resolved with the Blazers. But they have the site. The group has kind of been lying in wait. You could look at that one of two ways: that they feel like they have their ducks in a row and are ready to pounce when the opportunity comes, or that it's lost momentum. And I would probably be on the side of the latter. I think that I don't think that there's been anything that I would consider encouraging on the baseball front since they got kind of the state approval for the pie in the sky bonding for a stadium. I just have not, and given kind of the heavy lift that doing business has been for the Blazers, I think that is really bad for baseball's efforts. It's not, if Major League Baseball is watching how the NBA is being treated here, I don't think that they're liking what they're seeing.
Donovan Clingan, one of the, I think a bright spot, definitely had a great season last year and just kind of big physical guy you can play through. What are your thoughts on his future, and what's your take on being able to watch him all the time as a player?
Yeah, he's been a great story. I mean, obviously a guy who had high expectations and was hugely successful in college, but it's a position where it's hard to make the transition from college to the NBA, and he has been, I think, much more than the lob threat rim protector that they expected. I mean, he's a pretty good defender in space, pretty good pick and roll defender. He's started stepping out and shooting threes. I mean, the analytics on him, as when he's in the game, opposing teams scoring in the paint is nearly zero. He's I think nothing could speak more highly of Donovan other than to say that the Blazers have essentially deemed him unmovable in any deals. Like, if they were going to get serious about Jalen Brown, they would want to figure out how to do that without including Donovan. I think that they're open to trading Scoot for the right guy. I think they'd trade Shaden Sharp for the right guy. I think Donovan Clingan is in the group of guys along with, Denny and Tumani Kamara that they would absolutely need to be blown away on to include in a trade. I don't think they want to do it, and I don't think they would, because they view him as that essential to their future and important to what they're doing defensively. Especially, by the way, if you're going to start Ja Morant with Dame Lillard, two guards who don't play defense,
who's going to guard?
You're going to need a great rim protector.
Hey, you know what? I think just to go full circle with you, I think the Portland needs to get on the LeBron James sweepstakes, bring him up there, and then you've got a whole host of things that you can talk about up there.
Come on in, LeBron. The water's just fine.
You could bring Bronny too.
Yeah, bring Bronny.
Make it a family affair.
There you go.
He's fully guaranteed now, though, right? So he's the new face of the franchise in LA. Yep. I was told.
Hey, Bill, you're the best, man. We appreciate it. Thanks so much, and let's chat again here soon.
Thanks, guys. Fun talking.
There he is, Bill Oram, Oregonian. Used to work for the Tribune here in Salt Lake City. Really good dude, and he's up there making it happen there in Portland. And as you mentioned, there's no for a small market town, there's no loss of good headlines up there right now.
Tom has given him reasons to write.
No doubt.
Miami, July 5th and July 31st. Ice Cube's Big Three is back at the Amerant Bank Arena, featuring big stars like Dwight Howard, Joe Johnson, Lance Stevenson, and more. And featuring your home team, the Miami 305, led by Michael Beasley. Grab your tickets now at big3.com/tickets or Ticketmaster. Presented by iHeart.
The days are longer, the calendar is filling up, and I want to feel as good as this beautiful summer weather. That's why I've been loving Groons. It's one daily pack of gummies that covers my greens, vitamins, minerals, and even has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, so I don't need to juggle a complicated wellness routine on top of everything else. They taste amazing, they're easy to toss in my bag on the go, plus they're vegan, gluten-free, and HSA and FSA, eligible for reimbursement. Save up to 52% off with code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.